Hi, friends. Regina Sanchez, your spiritual life and health coach, believing in you. Welcome to my video podcast, giving you a fresh start. And of course, a big Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a great Christmas season, a great New Year celebration, and are excited about the new year of 2022. There's going to be exciting things happening for us this year. And we are going to, I don't know, we're going to have multiple surprises as we move forward and into the year. So I hope you're all prepared and excited. Today I want to venture out in my talk of continuing my discussion on building your immune system. But I'm gonna go back into discussing food. Specifically, I had something happen with me last week that really shed some light on an issue that I felt I wanted to address and kind of educate people on. So grab your favorite beverage, pause this video, grab your favorite beverage. I have my actual second cup of my English breakfast tea that I am enjoying. It is a cold, wet morning, and I'm sitting in my kitchen, so welcome to my kitchen. The lighting is a little weird, but welcome. So what I wanted to talk with you and do a little training and educating on is the topic of processed foods. Last week I was having a conversation with a friend, and we were discussing about, losing weight and, diets and, so on and so forth. And I had shared with her that I would venture to guess that if she would cut out all sugar and stop the processed foods, that she would start to see some weight loss. And so her response to me was, well, yeah, I agree with you about the sugar, but I don't have processed foods. And I said to her, I promise you, you do. And I said that only because, well, for two reasons. When people say that to me, and then I go and we check out their pantry or whatever. Or when people say I eat really well, and then I make them do a food chart for a week, I find all those I eat well issues that aren't that can't be defined as I'm eating well, right? Because people just aren't educated and understanding on a lot of different things. So I said to her, I promise you that there is processed foods in your pantry. Because, and just from conversations that I've had with her, I knew that there was processed foods in her pantry. So she said to me, well, like what? Name them. And I'm like, well, I really would have to look in your pantry to identify them. So actually that afternoon, I did go over to her house to go through her pantry with her. And sure enough, there was processed foods. Now, in her defense, she didn't really realize that what I was pulling out and showing her was processed. She felt that, in her eyes, processed food was a prepared meal. And she cooks. So she doesn't usually buy prepared meals. So she feels, or she felt like she doesn't use processed foods. But what I had to shine the light on is that the boxes of mixes are processed. That box of rice with a certain flavoring or whatever is processed. Or that box of pudding is processed. The cookies that you buy are processed, right? If you buy a box of Oreos, even if you buy Paul Newman's Oreos, which are the healthier side of eating an Oreo cookie, it's processed. So anything that you do not make on your own from scratch is going to be considered processed. So so let's just take a step back. Why would it be in her best interest to not have that box of rice mix? So let's just say it was a Spanish rice mix. Why would she not want to use that? Why would it be in her best interest to make it from scratch? Well, number one, she's going to know every ingredient that she puts in that Spanish rice, right? Because she's going to start out with rice. And then she's going to go in her spice cabinet and pull out the spices and put them in there. So she's going to know what spice is in there. The problem is, and I know I've explained this before, and I'm going to take a few minutes and I'm going to re-explain it. The problem is that the FDA requires food manufacturers to only list the ingredients that they put in the food. Okay? And I'll go back to the example of my son. 18 months old, develops night terrors. To shorten this story, I got introduced to the Feingold Institute, who educated me on understanding ingredients in our food. And so, if a jar says peas, then that's all that Beech-Nut put in the peas. Beech-Nut put in peas, because I was using Beech-Nut at that time. So Beech-Nut put peas in, and that's all that was in that jar. Or if there was applesauce, if they made applesauce out of apples, 100% apples, they didn't put any other ingredient in there, it's just apples, then you could feel confident that that's all that's in there. But the issue became when we went to the jar of beef stew and listed the ingredients. And so the beef was okay, the peas were okay, the carrots and the potatoes were okay until we got to the egg noodles. And now, Beech-Nut listed all those ingredients that they put in that jar, and they put in egg noodles. They bought egg noodles from a manufacturer. What that manufacturer put in their egg noodles was yellow dye. And that was not revealed on the jar of Beech-Nut because the FDA did not require Beech-Nut to do that, nor requires anyone else to do that. So when you buy, now let me just even say this. In that jar of stew, let's say there were dried peas, not whole peas, but dried peas. You could probably be guaranteed that those dried peas had food coloring or something in it, had an ingredient in it to make the dried peas. Okay? So I hope I'm explaining this and not confusing you. So what you want to be careful with is to understand the ingredients that's inside your food. Now, she had pulled out a bag of egg noodles. And so she goes, well, what could be wrong with this? So we look at the ingredients, and there was wheat. And I think it wasn't whole wheat, but it wasn't bleached and fortified. You don't want to do bleach and fortified wheat in anything, okay? Why they strip the wheat of all its nutritional value and then feel like they need to put chemicals in it to fortify it is beyond my thinking. So you don't want anything that has bleached, fortified wheat. So I think it had unbleached wheat or whatever, which was fine, but then it had dried eggs. And I said, the problem is you don't know if there is food coloring in those dried eggs. If they said eggs, then that would be safe in my eyes. But because it said dried eggs, I would not personally trust that bag of egg noodles and eat it. So that's what we want to caution ourselves with. We want to really need, number one, my overall theme is we need to be our own health advocate. We need to take our health into our hands. Not that we're diagnosing ourselves or, trying to manage our medical issues, but we need to be our own health advocate, and we need to understand the disease that we may be dealing with, educate ourselves on it, so that when we go to the doctor, we feel like we understand what they're saying. So not only do we need to be our own health advocate, we need to be our food advocate. We need to start educating ourselves on understanding our food and how manufacturers are totally destroying our food. And why are they doing it? For profit. And thinking they're making it easy for us. I mean, years ago, and I believe all of this probably started with World War II. The men went off to war. Most of the women, for the most part, were stay-at-home moms. They cooked and baked and took care of the house. But now they had to go to work in the factories. So, you know what? What a beautifully designed plan. So now you got all these food manufacturers saying, well, let me make it easy on that wife, on that mom, and let me give her a boxed cake mix or a macaroni and cheese in a box. Make your own macaroni and cheese, friends. It's not hard at all. It really isn't. Make your own rice pilaf. Just, it might take another minute or two, to make sure you have the ingredients, but it is so worth it, friends, to make your food from scratch as much as you possibly can. So now another thing I wanted to kind of shed some light on too is, so I'll make myself homemade spaghetti sauce. I don't use fresh tomatoes. I have, but on the most part I don't. I buy, jarred tomatoes or canned tomatoes. But when I do that, there's two things that I look for. I make three things. I make sure they're organic. I make sure that there are no other ingredients, just tomatoes in that can or jar. And then I make sure that if it's a can, that the can does not have BPA in it. And sadly, I think there was a time when organic had that in there, aligned their cans with BPA. What is BPA? It is a chemical that's derived from gasoline. What we put in our car? Well, they extract this chemical from the gasoline to make a preservative that is supposed to preserve the food. So it's supposed to preserve the can of whatever it is you're buying. Now, the crazy thing is, our grandparents years ago, they canned, right? They'd have gardens and they would take the vegetables from the garden and they would can it. And, I used to see my grandmother, the things she would can on her shelves. And, they knew how to can. They knew how to do the process so that, the food wouldn't get mold or bacteria in it. So why can't our manufacturers do the same? Why do they have to infiltrate the food with chemicals? Is it laziness? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. So that you want to read your labels. You want to read, your cans and your jars of food whenever you're buying anything. And if you've got something that's got this long list of ingredients, I recommend you stay away from it, because there's probably ingredients on there you don't even know what they are. And, things get renamed, just like MSG. Years ago, MSG was this big, frightening taboo, rightly so. You don't want to ingest MSG. Well, people were not happy with it, so they renamed it. And now they call it, there's a long list of different things that could be used as MSG. One of them is natural flavoring. When you see something that says natural flavoring, you can almost guarantee it's got MSG in it. Or you don't know what's in there. Natural to the FDA does not mean natural. So our food manufacturers can dance around that issue. Or They could put one ingredient in their food, can, jar, or box, that's natural, and it entitles them to call the product natural, even if 90% of the rest of the items or ingredients are chemicals. And so we need to now also be an advocate of our food intake and understanding our food, and teach our children young that they don't want to eat a bag of Doritos, that they want to eat a piece of fruit if they're hungry. Teach them young. You know, the hard part is when they get into school and they, start hanging out with their friends who don't think the same way and allow their children to eat anything, any kind of junk. Then it's hard. But so many times that, if you feed yourself whole, real food, and then you introduce something of a chemical, your body will know it, and the taste, you'll know it. Like for me, I have not had a donut in 30 years or so. The thought of biting into a donut I couldn't do it. I would feel the effects on my whole body by eating that donut. Right? Because I just kind of shied away from it, trained my body. If I want cake, I make it from scratch, because then I know every ingredient that goes in that cake. If I want cookies, I make them from scratch. Yeah, does it take a few minutes longer? Yeah, a little bit. But I'm guaranteed the ingredients that go into that food, into those cookies, into my meal. If I want soup, never would I buy a can or a jar of soup. Did I? Yeah, I did years ago. But I would never do it now. Because number one, most of them are high in sodium. And even if it says low in sodium, it still has probably ingredients that I'd stay away from, that I would not want to ingest in my body. It's not, is there a nutritional value to this food? I don't trust it. Make a pot of homemade soup. I'll eat it myself. I live by myself. I cook for myself every day, unless I'm eating a leftover because I've made a lot. Like I'll make a pot of soup like I would have made for my family, right? And I'll eat it for 2 or 3 meals. I don't care. Or I'll take this soup and I'll put them in, large mason jars and freeze them. Now, no, if you do that with food, if you want to freeze them in mason jars, just, make sure you leave enough room at the top. I probably leave about that much room in the jar for it to expand. Otherwise, the jar will crack, because I've done it. And I've had cracked jars, which was very sad. But learning to make, things from scratch, it actually ends up being fun. And then, searching for new recipes and trying new recipes. Right? I have a binder. I have multiple binders. I think I've showed this before. I have multiple binders that are categorized. So one binder might be, appetizers or meals or desserts, soups, salads, right? I have specific binders, they're maybe 1-inch binders. And in there, I have an insert that has a pocket. And anytime I find a new recipe that I like, online, I print it and I stick it in the pocket. Then every week, I do sit down and I plan out my menu for the next week, so that when I go to the grocery store, I can make sure I have all the ingredients for something that I want to make. And I will go through the binders and I'll look through the recipes and I say, I think I'll try that recipe next week. And so I will pull out the recipe, make sure I have the ingredients. If not, I write them on the grocery list. And then when I make that specific recipe, if I enjoy it and if I like it, then it goes in the binder in a page protector. And I might comment, really good, not bad, whatever. And I have stacks of recipes that I have yet to try. And then every once in a while, I just weed through them and I throw them away because I've had them for a number of months and I haven't felt led to do it, so I'll just toss them. But it can be a fun process to do that. And then especially if you have kids, that teach them to cook. Let them enjoy cooking. It can be fun. So anyway, I hope that this teaching helps you. I hope that it sheds some light on understanding processed foods, and that you now go into your pantry and start reading the ingredients on those boxes or jars or cans that you have. And to help you with that, there's going to be a link below of a PDF that will help you with a list of ingredients you want to consider staying away from. And this way, you'll know, you'll understand, because some of the foods that we ingest or that we buy have ingredients that are pretty long and words we don't even know what they mean. So I want to help you with that. But I hope this helped. I hope that it shed some light for you. I hope it encourages you. I don't want to frustrate you or make you feel overwhelmed. That is not my process. That is not my goal, to make you feel overwhelmed. I learned this lesson years ago, to try to do things in bite-sized pieces, because I was just starting my organizational business. And I had a referral to a doctor whose wife had passed away, and she had been very sick for a number of years. And they lived in a very large house. I want to say it was like 5,000 or 6,000 square feet. And she was involved in theater or something. So she had rooms of costumes and things of that nature. Well, anyway, I got referred to the doctor to help him downsize the house. I think he wanted to put the house on the market, and it was really full of clutter at this point. And he had neglected a lot of things because she was so sick that he was taking care of her. And then even before he even had to really start taking care of her, the house wasn't being taken care of because she was not feeling well. So it had been a number of years that the house had any kind of major attention to it. So I had gone in there with my pad and notes, and we went into every single room. And I listed what needed to be done to get that room ready to put on the market. And it was a massive job. There were hours and hours and hours of work. And so when I sent him the proposal and what I felt it was going to cost based on the hours of each room, he nearly flipped a lid. Didn't hire me. It was a lot of money. That I don't deny. But it was a big job. It was a massive job. And so he didn't hire me. And it was my fault on some level, because what I really should have just done is saying, what room do you want to start with? Give me a couple of hours to tend to that room and I'll get it ready for you, or whatever, whatever it would have been. If I had given it to him in bite-sized pieces, if I had said, let's just start in one room and deal with that, and maybe it would propel himself to do some of the work too. I think, he initially was looking for me to take care of the whole house. I mean, it was thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to get his house ready if it was all up to me. And so if I had given it to him in a little bite-sized piece, perhaps he would have, hired me. But he didn't. And he did eventually sell the house. And I'm not sure how he got it cleaned out, but he was successful at getting it done. So my point is, my goal is to not overwhelm you. It's just to give you things in bite-sized pieces to help you start thinking of building up your immune system, taking care of your health, right? And strengthening you. And to help, we're in a society, especially these past 2 years, where we think that building an immune system is injecting chemicals into our body. Like, wow, how did we get to this point of that thought process? Friends, God designed our body to heal itself. But it's kind of hard to heal itself when it's full of toxic chemicals, right? I mean, not that God can't do anything miraculous. I don't deny that. And he might. He might miraculously give you a miracle and heal your body of diabetes or heart disease or cancer or whatever. I'm not God, and I can't say how God is going to help you. He might. But if you don't get your lifestyle changed, and if you don't start looking at your food intake and what you're feeding yourself, you will potentially be back with that same disease if you don't start eating right and giving your body the tools it needs. So I am here to help you, friends. It's my passion to help people live healthy and building up a strong immune system. So I'm here to coach you if you want to be coached because it feels overwhelming to you. Trust me, we'll take it in bite-sized pieces that will help you get results along the way. It will give you victory along the way. But if there's anything you can do for yourself this year, truly become your own health advocate, your best health advocate, and be your best food intake person that you can be. Learn, educate yourself, understand food, and understand that you can't trust what the box says, all natural or whatever. That you've got to understand how our food manufacturers are destroying our food. And they're lying to us. So click the link below for that PDF. Like this if you enjoy it. It helps get the message out. Subscribe if you would like. That way you'll be notified as new videos come out. Next week, we're going to start talking about fear. And do you know that fear will weaken your immune system by 70%? 70%. So if you're living in fear, and let me tell you, our government and our media has done a fabulous job with that this year. They have so instilled in people an intense level of fear that is beyond understanding to me. Some of the fear that I see in people, it's illogical. They've removed common sense from their realm of thinking, and they're living in a mode of fear. And all that fear is going to do is weaken your immune system by 70%, they're saying. The studies show by 70% your immune system is weakened when you live in fear. The other emotion that weakens your immune system that falls under fear is anger. So if you're walking in anger and unforgiveness, you're weakening your immune system. But the top emotion that weakens your immune system is fear. And I'm going to start talking about that next week. We're going to start delving into that, giving you the tool to get that out of your life. So friends, thanks. I so appreciate you taking this time listening to my video or my podcast, whichever you desire. You have a blessed rest of the day, and I will look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks.